8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Ed Chaney, the CEO of Canafil. How you doing today, Ed?
I'm doing fine, Ben. Thank you. How are you today?
I am fantastic and getting better by the minute. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
My first question for you today, sir, is what is your story?
So my story is I'm a true entrepreneur. Canafil is my newest project. I've been working on it for about a year and a half. I think my story is I continuously keep one of these startup companies in my back pocket because that's what I like to do. I have built 7 of them in my last 30 years. So that's my story.
When you say a true entrepreneur, what do you mean by that?
That's a great question because I don't know if many people know exactly what that means. It doesn't always equate how much money is in the bank. It's a capability of taking something from nothing and build it into something. And it's probably even less to do with the something than building a team around that to make something that the consumers want to be a part of.
That's interesting because out of all the pieces of starting something, I mean, there's like so many things to do. It's interesting that you would talk about building the team to serve the customers because it seems like the common thread there is that it's about people.
That is my feeling on that as well.
Why?
So there's 2 sides of this. One I found out 10 years ago is that I have aspirations to witness the potential in others. And when I say that, I truly do. I get so much value from it. And so I'm a people first type of entrepreneur. So I will consider the people before I consider the revenue or the dollar. And with that mindset, it's very easy to put a team together because they become very aware that it's about them first. And as those in my skills over the years, I've learned how to foster the potential from people. I truly do spend more time in that area than I do on the product. And even more so, if I have a team that's incredibly potential, they're the ones creating the product and making it something that everybody wants.
So I understand learning how to develop somebody, but and I want to get into that. But how do you see the potential in somebody? Like what does that actually look like? How do you actually do that?
So I often wonder if that's a developed skill or just a skill you have inside of you. And I've gone to the latter. You have to have that ability to see that the potential in people or the potential for success in people. And then it just becomes a matter of just fostering it. Over the years, certainly I've been able to talk with people and read their body language, listen to what comes out of their thought processes. And over the years, you sort of get really good at determining or interpreting what those things are telling me.
That's fascinating.
That's first and foremost. I also have found that when I lead interview processes, I always lead them with discovering what it is they want first, as opposed to what do I need. Ben, you should know that I am a big proponent in setting up company cultures. So that usually is my second job in an interview, is to have them connect with the company's culture and then look for synergies in that area before I move to competencies.
Wow. So it's identifying what they want, will they fit, and what can they do?
That's very well put. That's perfect. In that order too. Is my
How do you do that? Like, how do you probe? What sort of questions do you ask?
So, a pretty interesting first couple of questions is what do you aspire to accomplish in the next 5 years? What do you aspire in the next 10 years? Where do you see yourself and how does that look for you? Those questions they're very friendly. People love to talk about themselves, and I can see that some people will answer those questions very quickly and very confidently, and some will stumble, and that is something I can interpret there as well.
Ah,
Either one, the confident person comes on, I know exactly where they're going to go. I have somebody that stumbles and they're not sure where they want to be in 10 years. Then I move to step 2 and I go, can I help you get there? Can I help you to formulate where you want to be in 5 or 10 years from now? So I will have that conversation with them too. If I can see something from that, then I know what to do.
so when you're asking these questions, and I love the distinction between confidently knowing how to answer versus stumbling a little bit, having to really dig deep in that moment, or at least attempt to. And that makes a lot of sense that you would go into that second follow up. But what are you really looking for? Like what to you is the answer of the ideal person that you're like, oh my goodness, this person has potential?
Ooh, transparency is really big. Integrity is big, and I can get that out of these questions, the answers to these questions very early on. I'm fairly emotionally intelligent, so I can pick up on body language. I can pick up on communications. Um, so those two are really big for me.
Hmm.
Integrity it's a tough one to mask, hard to sell, easy to spot.
What does it look like though?
So I have a single definition for integrity when I share this with my team that you do what you say you're going to do. And that does have far reaching capability. It really does. Encompasses a lot. And so if I need to dig in and find out where they are and their integrity, it's very easy for me to have that beginning conversation where I find out who they are, what they aspire to be. And then when I go down into maybe their history, their work history, that's when I can look for integrity.
So you're looking, it would seem like you would be looking for congruence of like, if I want to be here in 10 years, has my path thus far set me up to be able to achieve that?
That is correct. That is definitely one. That's a great big one too. You that is something I might conclude after the entire interview process is completed. More so, the easier ones are how might they have handled certain situations that I saw on their resume.
Like what kind of situations?
Why'd you leave the company? Um, what was a potential that was set in front of you? Did you meet it? How do you feel about it? Those kind of questions are helpful in discovering integrity and also meaningful in other areas too. When I ask questions like that, I'll peer into the answer for integrity, but I'll also look to find the best method to lead that person. I think half my interview is mostly about that anyway, until I've discovered something that I feel they don't make a fit, and then I just finish the interview up and move along. But a lot of that interview is focused around how do I lead this person once they're on board.
That is fascinating. And I love that the conversation went to this because it's pretty meta if you think about it. Like this is an interview and we're talking about interviews. I love that. I love that. so so when you, let's say they pass the integrity check. They pass kind of that first phase of what do you aspire to be? The culture fit. How do you drill down into that? I mean, is it taking the pieces of the integrity and then digging into whatever gaps may be left? Like what's the strategy there?
And it's a great question, Ben. So up front, they'll know what my core values will be. They'll also know what the vision and mission will be. It's fairly simple to check for alignment there. If transparency and trust is a core value, it's quite easy to have that conversation. I have found that sometimes I'll need to present my definition of those core values because they can be subjective. If you say the word, integrity is a core value, it could be subjective. So I will also have on hand the description or my definition of each of those core values, and I'll share that so that there's no confusion on what I mean by that core value. And then from that, it's quite easy. It always has been quite easy. If the core values are well defined or the culture is well defined, it's quite easy to arrive at synergy.
Hmm. Do
Or
you find, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
congruence probably is the better word.
So when you're moving from venture to venture, do your core values stay the same, or did they evolve, or have they evolved over time, or does it change based on the
That is
new
a
project?
that is a terrific question. So the answer is there's two answers for it. One, the fundamental core values have followed the entire 30 years. I was amazed when I observed that. And then what I found is I would drop or add one or two, depending on the entity of the project, the company we're building.
And what,
I'm in the CBD space with Canafil. Trust is really big. So trust was added to my core value. Transparency was also added to my core values. Those two, I don't, there's no negotiations. You come on board knowing this, you are capable of interacting with it and contributing to it, or I can't get past the interview.
those core values that have come with you from venture to venture,
Yes.
how did you first develop those, and why have they stuck around?
Okay. So I went inside myself and understood the kind of world I wanted to live in. Those are the ones that surfaced up first. And it did take a while to understand what they were, consulting and dealing with my peers to try to help understand what they were. And then I was also taught very early on that once they are established, you do not change them. Whether you think they're right or wrong a year and a half from now, you keep them where they are if you've already implemented it into your company. So with those two, decisions. So coming from within me first, because this is the world I wanted to live in. And then two, once I knew I was going to set it on the table, I wasn't going to pull it off. That's why they've stayed. And that's how I came to them. I understood before I launched my first set of core values so many years ago that I wasn't going to change it once I did it. So I gave a lot of thought to what they were, and then I just managed them once they were put in place. And it is my full-time job to manage them, by the way. So I was told by a very seasoned entrepreneur many years ago that your number one job as CEO is to set the company culture and sustain it. And that can be a daily task. And it often is.
I'm really interested to learn more about, because it seems like it was a phase, and maybe it never came to a conclusion, but that initial introspection period where you really dug deep into yourself. And I know you talked briefly about it, but I'm really interested to understand, like, how did you really come to those conclusions? Because there are a lot of different values, and there are a lot of things that are important to a lot of different people. So how did you figure out exactly which ones were the right ones for you? And the reason why I'm so interested in this question is because, and learning about how you do it, is because I very firmly believe that we're very, very dynamic creatures, and that we have like who we are at our core. But then we also have a lot of external influences. And then there's like the space in between that's like somewhat of a mixture of bits and pieces of each. And then we're dynamic, so we're constantly having new things enter our, like, our internal ecosystem, and all that's playing together. So like, How did you actually dig through all those layers to find out what was important enough to bring with you throughout the 30 years of doing business and creating things?
Yeah, so and Ben, that is a really good question. It is tough to arrive at this in the beginning, and the answer to your question is it took quite a while. I would like to say it took over a year and a half. I first had to understand the importance of having a company culture, and then I arrived at the same place you just shared, which is these are the accepted core values for most companies. This is, when you have a workforce, these are the things that are needed, and you go and you peer into the core values of successful companies. Oh yeah, those are good core values too. So I did go through all those phases, and I think it was interaction with my peers. So I was a part of an EO organization called EO. When I first started, it was called YEO, YPO, and so forth. It was that group of peers, other CEOs, that really helped me overcome just picking out core values that seemed like they were just the right fit for business. Once I had a chance to interact with my peers and start to discover what was meaningful, what wasn't, and setting up my core values, it became really easy for me to look inside. As an example, Ben, one of the core values that has always kept itself in any of my companies was being enthusiastic and having team spirit. Those two have stayed forever, and it's because they're inside me. I can't not be around people that are enthusiastic. It's not my character, and because I have the aspiration for having my team and my individuals reach their potential, I know that can only be done in a team environment. So, and I love celebrating. My employees become very close to me, almost like family. I look to protect them before I protect anybody else. So the answer to your question was it took a lot of thought. And I really had to try to push back from the urge of just going onto the internet, finding what everybody else was doing, and just try to meet the demand that way. So it took a lot. But I can tell you, once I did it, and once it was implemented correctly, I have to tell you this. I think half the decisions made by my companies are made by the core values. And then another quarter is made by the mission statement. And the rest are, the other 25% is made by all of us principals.
Well, that certainly does help a lot.
Yeah, doesn't it? Sometimes those decisions are hard. We can deflect them over to the core value of the company culture. It can be a lot simpler delivery.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So as you're moving from the second phase of culture into competency,
Okay.
how do you measure that? Like, how do you dig into that?
I take a two position approach with this. Position one that I have is looking for potential. Position number two, I defer it off to somebody who knows how to look for those competencies. Yes, I have. I have also gone through that stage of hire quickly, fire slowly, until I learned that was the reverse. It's hire slowly, fire quickly. I have also understood that interviewing for competencies is not always the best thing for me to do. So I'll defer it. So I'll go for the culture fit. I'll go for the individual. I'll go for the potential, and then I'll move that individual off to somebody who can check for the competencies more accurate than I can.
Have you, in your years of interviewing people and building these teams and really taking on the job of identifying and instilling the culture, have you ever found anybody that was such a good fit or was so talented or you saw so much potential that you thought that you were like, this is this is the next person to take over the helm of the ship. Have you ever found somebody of that caliber?
Yes, it's my job to do that. So I still have two businesses. One business I've had for 23 years now. And so I had to do just that. I had to find that person that could take it over. I still CEO over that person, but that person has my full trust and has the trust of everybody that's on their team. So yes, it's a job. It's a responsibility of mine to be able to do that. And I'll do it for every company. I'll do it for Canada. And I will even do it when I don't believe I can service my company correctly. For instance, having a company under 10 million a year in annual revenue is run differently than having a company that is greater than 10 million a year. So those are two different skill sets.
I guess what I'm really trying to dig into is, as somebody who is, I mean, it seems like you're constantly searching for talent and looking for people.
Yes.
And I'm very interested in like the idea of a mentor, you know, mentorship. Um, and I found that having been mentored, and still to this day, you know, I have mentors that I look up to, um and there are also people who I try to provide that same service of being a mentor for. There are very few people that, both on both sides, I'm like, okay, wow, this is the person, this is the person, like this is the one that I want to bring with me. When you find that person, how do you how do you develop them? How do you bring them up? How do you give them the runway that they need to be able to fully reach their full potential?
Okay, that's a great question, Ben. And it's interesting you brought up the mentoring. The most successful person I had that went through this process, um, mentoring was a big piece, a really big piece of it. And I can honestly say that I had to earn the right to be that person's mentor. And once that was established, um, I just had to be me. I'm people first. So clearly, if once that person gave me the permission to be the mentor, I just had to be me from then on. So to answer the rest of your question, um, it is a constant search. The two things that I would say are extremely important is, first and foremost, I would have to earn that person. I would need to earn that person's trust, respect, so that I could be in a mentored position. That's where I perform the best. I think I'm a coach by nature. That's what's deep inside me. And the second one is I cannot have any issues with empowerment. So I must be able to freely give it and not be concerned with consequences. I have to deal with the consequences, but it can't withhold empowerment because I'm afraid of the consequences. So to answer your question, I believe it's from my experience of all these years, those are probably the two most important factors in not only discovering that person, but grooming them on.
I'm so fascinated by this because, you know, as I mean, I'm 24 years old, and I've had a few mentors, and yeah, I'm extraordinarily grateful for everybody that's chosen to share
So,
some of their time with me.
yeah.
Um, to me, I think there's responsibility on both sides, right? And I love what you said about earning the right to be somebody's mentor. I think it goes both ways too. Somebody has to earn the right to be mentored, you know, by somebody, you know, by you, and in your case. Um, and I'm interested in understanding what if anything outside of what we've already talked about, like what else did they do in order to pique your interest to where you wanted to earn the right to be their mentor?
Okay, very good question. And I have to share this. I have been mentored a few times, and Ben, you'll laugh at this. I'm not a mentor. I don't do well being mentored. So yes, I am laughing at myself for that. But I've had a few opportunities, and I noticed I've not done well in any of them. But I'm terrific at mentoring, so I wanted to sneak that in. So over the years, I present the offer for mentoring very quickly. So over all the people that are on my teams, it's very easy for me to spot somebody that has potential, even if they were hired in as low level. I'll watch them over the years, and if I see potential, I will bring that opportunity for mentoring up. Now, I can make the invitation at that point. And here's what I've seen over the years. Over the course of the next 90 days, the person that wants to be mentored, this person that you're talking about, it needs to earn the right to be mentored, will either show up in 90 days or will not show up. The enthusiasm will be there for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then the phone calls and the emails, and they'll start trickling down, and then it'll all just dissipate. So I have learned to freely give the invitation for mentoring, because over a period of 90 days, I can understand fairly quickly whether that person wants to be mentored. And I don't do anything afterwards. I make the invitation, and then I just respond in kind. If I stop hearing requests, then I know where that ends, and I don't sever the relationship. I stop the mentoring. So you're right. You're right. It has to be earned from both sides.
I'm so interested in learning why it never worked out the other way where you got mentored.
I don't know. I don't know. Stubborn is probably the first thought that comes to the surface of my brain. Most of my mentoring opportunities were easily 10 or 15 years ago. It might have been ego still in there, but I'm pretty sure it was all internal. It was me. But looking back, it's interesting that I can reflect on that. I feel like I had this conversation with you. I never sat and looked at that. So, now, I don't think I don't treat it as a flaw either. I had somebody else teach me many years ago that mentor does not have to be put on notice. That a mentor doesn't even have to be alive today. So I could choose mentors at leisure. I think I tend to do that more.
And who have you chosen to learn from?
So I don't want to call out any names. There's a few local, very seasoned and now retired entrepreneurs that I'll tend to stay up with their books. I'll just keep in touch with them. I'll follow their past progresses and such. I certainly have found many books that will inspire me. I had lots of access to very skilled people, authors and presenters in my 20 years in that entrepreneur organization. So I probably have a dozen at least that I can refer to as mentors, and they're not aware of it.
One of the things I love the most about doing this show, and you know, I really feel like I'm very lucky to be able to do this show. But one of the things that I love most about it, that I'm so grateful for, is the opportunity to talk to so many incredible people. Because
Sure.
I think back to somebody like Benjamin Franklin. He's a huge hero of mine. I've studied his autobiography, I've studied his work, his inventions, and one of the things that I wish, and I'll never be able to have it. That's why it's a wish, is that I could be a part of a conversation with him,
Mm.
because all of everything that he's left behind, and he did leave behind a lot. It's polished. It's been preserved in the same, in the same state that he created it. But a conversation, an organic, raw conversation, that is a look into how somebody operates, into how they think,
Yeah.
into who they are as a person. And to have been able to participate in that, or even to hear that from somebody like Benjamin Franklin, or for example, I'm studying Confucius right now, and there was a time when he was traveling, and he actually met Lao Tzu, who is the founder, or one of the founding one of the person whose ideology founded Taoism. Those are very like competing forces there, and they had a conversation. They met each other in real life. To have been able to listen to that conversation, oh, that would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. And yeah, I mean, I truly think that I can learn from everybody.
I think
Truly think so.
I think that's a smart position to take. Right or wrong, we're on this planet with a bunch of other humans just like us. So learning anything from them will help one way or another.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So in your 30 years of experience building companies, building organizations, putting together teams, what have been some of the biggest discoveries that you've made?
Okay, let's start with the company culture, and that is bringing somebody in that is not willing to contribute to the company culture, or is not even capable of contributing to the company culture. And I didn't identify that in the interview, and let's say this person has a strong or a dominant personality. I have learned the hard way, and I read up on this and didn't believe it, but subcultures are created in companies all the time, and that's where they start. You bring somebody in, they're not going to comply with your company culture, but they're strong. You can bet you can bet that they potential for a subculture would be created. And consider how relevant this is. You get that person on board. If they are not willing to participate in your culture, they probably do not like the way things are running. And to not look bad, they're going to start soliciting people to join their culture, which is how a subculture becomes extremely counterproductive very quickly. So I've certainly have learned that. I have learned that planning is one of the keys. Not being able to formulate a long and a short-term plan. In other words, entrepreneurs shooting from the hip have very low success rates. And the ones that do not succeed, if they are shooting from the hip, are in for a very painful ride. Let's see here. So that's number 2. Number 3 would be equally as important. Take care of yourself first. In other words, entrepreneurs want to be, or at least me, I want to be caring for my other people. I want to make sure all my vendors get taken care of. And early on, I did that in lieu of taking care of myself. And so it certainly was a mental shift when I discovered how poor that was. So taking care of yourself first is super important. If you are whole, then you can be you can be who you need to be for your team. If you don't take care of yourself and then you become broken or distracted, then you're not of any value to your team. So how about those 3? Those are three pretty big ones.
Those are 3 huge ones. So when it comes to the first one of the strong character coming in and creating a subculture, what happens if they're right? Like what happens if that culture that they're trying to create, or the subculture that they have created and the overall culture that they're trying to create is actually a really good idea and a really good fit for the organization.
Well, so there, you said two things. So you said a really good idea and a really good fit. So once the culture was set by the CEO, that means the ship is pointing in a very specific direction, and others have come on board and have conformed to that culture in that direction. There is no other culture, and there's no right or wrong either. It's not that that person's culture wasn't a good idea; it's just not appropriate. So the huge job of the CEO is to make sure the ship is pointing in the right direction. The CEO doesn't have answers for all the problems that go on a daily basis. Doesn't have, that's not the CEO's job. The CEO's job is to point the ship, get everybody to row in the same direction, and that's it. So the answer to your question is it would not work, and it's not a right or wrong thing.
Is there ever a situation in which the CEO needs to turn the ship?
Always, always. And it happens all the time. And you hear discussions of it, companies that are 10 million or less, they turn the ship on the dime. Like I can wake up tomorrow morning and decide, we're moving over here, boys, let's go. You get to, $1 billion company and turn that ship is a 3-year process. So I hope that answers the question. So turning the ship is absolutely happens very often. Size of the company will determine how easy it's gonna move.
So, and maybe I'm just not fully grasping it. So if the person comes in and they have a very strong personality and they have, they're bringing in the subculture, what if the CEO decides it makes sense to turn the ship into that subculture? Like, would that?
How about this? I've never seen it done. Unless a CEO has been asked to be removed. And then it would then be up to the board or the new CEO to convince the team that a new culture is something that should be looked at. Now, when I heard the question, I do know there's a difference between moving the ship to another direction of business and changing the culture. Those two are different in my mind.
Absolutely.
Again, a CEO can set the wrong culture, but I don't see that often. And if it does happen, the CEO has been removed, and you're probably never going to know it was about a poor decision of a culture or of setting up the culture. It's going to be something else.
That is fascinating. That's fascinating because it seems like the reason CEO would get removed would be because of continued lack of performance.
Would be correct.
And
Yeah.
it seems like that would be a function of a poor culture. I mean, I don't even know, right? But it seems like the most likely culprit would be a poor culture set by that CEO. That's interesting. Well, I think this has been a very fascinating conversation thus far. So with the second one, with planning, you talked about short-term and long-term planning. What does that actually mean to you?
Well, again, from a CEO, so it's a part of setting the direction of the ship. The long term has to align with the CEO's vision. That's another extremely important role of the CEO is to set the vision and be able to articulate it well. And part of articulating that vision will be in the long-term planning. Once the long-term planning has been crafted, then the short-term pieces come out of that plan, and then your department heads are now performing those short-term plans that are in line with the long-term, that's in line with the vision. That's the CEO's job of pointing the ship.
I like that. I like that a lot. So So I'm curious about your specific journey.
Okay.
What would you say has been the most exciting part of everything that you've done and been a part of?
I think seeing a team's potential is going to be always still my top, most favorite. But in the world of business, I do like the crafting of a plan, especially if it's been reverse engineered with some activity or event or accomplishment at the end of it, reverse engineering it and watching the team take it. That I love. That I can look back at the 2 times I've done that really well, and I smile every time I think about it. I
I
really,
love that.
yeah.
So, and by the way, I'm so glad that we got a chance to speak today. Um, I really do find this stuff really fascinating, and I enjoy learning about your perspective on this stuff because I feel like there are people who talk about culture and planning and integrity, but I feel like your perspective on it and the way that like the priority of what is the most important. I find that just insanely fascinating. Like that is so interesting to me. And with all of your experience, I'm infinitely curious about this question, and it's actually going to be my last question. I've really enjoyed speaking with you thus far, um, but I really want to know. I'm 24, and I want to know what question should I be asking you, specifically you,
Yeah.
that I just wouldn't think to ask.
So it's a great way to put that. It's a really good way to put that. The term blind spot comes to my mind. Have you heard that term being used? The blind spot.
Yes, and
And then
in
we
a
go
lot of different
to
contexts.
that. Yeah. Okay. As I've gone through my 30 years, and what made you happiest? What successes have made you the happiest? I'm phrasing it this way because I'd like you to ask a question related around, was it money? How was your success measured? And how did you feel about that measurement?
Would you
Yes.
please answer that for me?
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. So in the beginning, and I've taught this over and over and over again, is that our P&Ls are our scorecards, much like when you're in school and you got your scorecard at the end of the semester. That was your measurement of your ability during that semester. And even now, it's a scorecard. But I noticed about 10 years ago, I started shifting away from that. But that scorecard, as it was related to money and money being attached to success, was not what made me feel successful inside. It only made me feel successful outside. And what do I mean by outside? As I'm talking to my other CEO peers or somebody looking into my company, I go, oh, look, I found that the success that was inside me wanted to see something different. And it probably and it did fall into 2 groups. And you'll laugh about both of these. The one was the abilities of my team. Again, I got to go back there. I can tell when they appreciate my leadership. I truly can. And that inspires me just as much as seeing their potential. The other one is, and this is the one to laugh about, is I never want to do anything unless I can brag to my mother about it. It's really about what the business can accomplish for the world, and a little less about that scorecard. And I found that a lot more fulfilling, a ton more fulfilling.
Well, the second one, I definitely understand,
Okay.
um, because I want to share with you a quick story. I think you'll find this funny too.
Okay.
Um, when I was 21, on July 3rd of 2016, I actually published my first book. It's called CEO at 20, a little book for big dreams.
Congratulations.
And thank you, sir. The only reason I bring that up is because the second that I saw it published, and it was self-published, so the first place I put it was on Amazon. The first thing I did when I saw it on Amazon was I called my mom and I said, "Mom, can you please check your email?" And she said, "Yeah." And so I said, "You see the email I just sent you?" She's like, "Mm-hmm." Said, "Go ahead and click that link." And she clicked it and she saw, and it was silent for a couple seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh my God, did you write a book?" And that one, that one experience, to feel that surprise and excitement, that made it worth the entire year that it took me to write that book.
That's terrific. I can connect with that. Yeah.
So shout out to you, Mom. You rock. And shout out to all moms. I think y'all are underappreciated, and I think y'all are some of the most important people in the world. But anyways, Ed, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing this time with me. It's been very, very special for me. And I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome, Ben. I enjoyed being on the show with you. You're a good host.
Thank you, sir. And to everybody who's watching, listening, I want to thank y'all for being a part of this with us, for being a part of this conversation, for taking time out of your busy schedule, because y'all's time is very valuable too. So thank y'all very, very much. I love you. You know I do. And I will see you on the next episode. Take care.